What is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, just welcome. My name is Gemma Jade, but today we are going to be talking about the Men in Black. As most of you know, I do have a series, a two-parter on the BEK, and that's what I'm hoping to do today with the Men in Black. I'm hoping to make this a part one, and I'm just going to simply tell some stories about the MIB, some encounters. I thought this would be a nice little video, just a break from, the last case I covered was so savage. So I thought this would be a fun little thing that we can discuss and that we can do. And I just also want to thank Steve Stockton, my one and only and my first Patreon and my partner in true crime with our podcast. But I will talk about all of that at the end of the video. And I also want to thank him and the one other person whose name I do not have permission to put in the video for donating through PayPal. It really did help, and I appreciate you. Anyways, I find the Men in Black to be, aside from the BEK, the creepiest and strangest, and in my opinion, most believable phenomenon out there, okay? So let's talk about the Men in Black, guys. The Men in Black, or as they're sometimes called, the MIB, are described by Wikipedia as, quote, supposed men dressed in black suits who claim to be quasi-government agents who harass, threaten, or assassinate UFO witnesses to keep them quiet about what they have seen. It is sometimes implied that they may be aliens themselves. The term is also frequently used to describe mysterious men working for unknown organizations, as well as various branches of government allegedly designed to protect secrets or perform other strange activities. The term is generic, used for any unusual, threatening, or strangely behaved person whose appearance on the scene can be linked in some fashion to a UFO sighting. Several alleged encounters with the Men in Black have been reported by UFO researchers and enthusiasts, end quote. Thank you, Wikipedia, because that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. I found some really strange Men in Black encounters, and there were so many. I picked out some of the strangest ones, but of course I had to save some for part two. I gotta keep you guys wanting more. So let's talk about the encounter that supposedly started it all. According to most researchers who study this phenomenon, Harold Dahl's 1947 experience is the first one ever recorded or reported and pretty much led the way for people to start coming forward. It doesn't necessarily mean it was the first one ever, but it was the first one reported, and this helped other people come out to start talking about it, and it kind of brought the phenomenon to light. So as the story goes, Harold Dahl was on a conservation mission in the Puget Sound near the eastern shore of Washington's Maury Islands. Harold went out to gather logs, I guess to start a fire, and he saw 6 donut-shaped objects hovering about a half a mile above his head. All of a sudden, as Harold sat there stunned and shocked, staring up at the sky, not knowing what he was seeing or what to do, one of these crafts fell about 1,500 feet and rained metallic debris all over the place. It just exploded or imploded, whatever. Allegedly, some of the debris hit Harold's son Carl on the arm and gave him a really nasty cut, but that's not the worst of it. Some of it also hit the family dog and killed it. Incredibly, Dahl had the presence of mind to get out his camera, a 1947's camera, so we're not talking digital, guys, and snap photos of the craft. That's pretty ballsy. Harold then took these photos to his supervisor, whose name was Fred Chrisman. Chrisman was highly suspicious and skeptical of Dahl's story. He didn't believe in UFOs, and he was like, yeah, right, you got some photos. But after Dahl showed him the photos, he went back to the scene himself, to the exact spot Dahl said he, his son, and the dog were when they saw the objects. And while he was there, Fred himself actually saw one of the same exact craft described by Dahl. He was immediately no longer a skeptic and didn't know what to do. This made him a believer. The very next day, Dahl was visited by a man wearing a black suit. I don't know how or why, but Dahl and this mysterious man somehow ended up at a diner, and the mysterious man ends up recounting to Dahl exactly what he had seen the day before. So this guy's telling Dahl, like, yeah, you're with your son and your dog, you looked up, you saw he told him the whole thing, including that he knew he took pictures of this craft. That's pretty scary. I don't know how you meet a strange man in black at a diner, but it was 1947 and the MIB stories hadn't come out yet, so maybe he didn't know what he was getting into. After recounting what Dahl had seen to a T, The stranger said to him, quote, "What I have said is proof to you that I know a great deal more about this experience of yours than you will want to believe." End quote. The sinister and seemingly psychic man then warned Dal that he was never to speak of the incident again, or, quote, "bad things may happen." End quote. So basically, that was a poorly veiled threat for Dal to not pursue this any further. Dal took the advice, and he, in fact, did not pursue it any further. He really never spoke of it again, and the information we have comes from his original account that he told to Chrisman. He was scared, and I don't blame him. In all of these allegedly true MIB encounters, the men in black always have one singular purpose, and that seems to be to silence witnesses to strange alien and paranormal phenomena. They wear black sunglasses and suits. They drive black cars. While they've also been described as wearing suits, wearing clothing, and driving cars from a past era, even back in 1947, they weren't dressed for the time, no one's ever been able to pinpoint which era. It seems like they're of a past, but maybe not a past from here. Maybe they're from another time, another past, interdimensional beings. They wear clothing similar to the 1940s, 1950s era, but it's similar to. It's not exactly. It's like there's something off about it. While some skeptics think these men are simply government agents working for a top secret and highly guarded agency, usually having to do with alien phenomenon, there are also some who describe them as just plain old FBI or CIA agents, although they act a little weird due to the secrecy of their job. They're not really able to talk to people. Just weird dudes who work for top secret government. That's what they want you to believe. I mean, after all, their main job is threatening and silencing witnesses to these events. Like, imagine knowing for a fact that there were aliens on this planet. How would that mess you up? I mean, I don't know if it'd mess me up, but some people, who knows what they've seen. Those who have seen them and those who wholeheartedly believe in the tales I'm about to tell you, believe these men aren't men at all, but aliens. They are always said to have strange features like glowing or even unblinking eyes, pale, plastic, fake-looking skin. They move in a mechanical manner, and they've no hair on their heads or face, and some have even reported that they have no mouth, but lipstick, red lipstick painted where the mouth should be. They also seem to be able to speak to each other when there's more than one, telepathically. They seem to be able to read minds, and that's not even the craziest thing they can do. But before I get into the stories that I'm covering today, I want to talk about what some folklorists have to say about the MIB phenomenon, because it's pretty interesting. They claim, quote, "The whole idea of Men in Black itself is a form of mass panic or of psychological drama due to suggestibility and a willingness to believe," end quote. Most people that believe in it, however, wholeheartedly believe that the Men in Black are part of a government agency, yeah, but not that they're a part of the CIA or the FBI. They're actually aliens who work for our government, and their sole purpose is to make sure at any and all costs that the public does not find out about anything having to do with aliens. We, the public, can never know that aliens exist and that they're on this planet. That tends to be what I believe, but we'll talk about that at the end. As of right now, there's no way to definitively tell if the MIB are real or not. Because if they are, in fact, a part of the secret government agency whose sole purpose is to do what I just said, everything I just mentioned, then they're doing a great job of it. The mere fact that they're so secret and so strange and threatening has prevented any kind of conclusive evidence of either alien abduction, anything to do with aliens, or the Men in Black existing at all. Do you guys get what I'm trying to say? So, are the Men in Black real? Are they just a symptom of mass panic or delusions? Or are they simply an urban legend akin to the BEK phenomenon? And if you haven't seen those videos, here's part 2. This is, of course, for you to decide, though. So here are the alleged encounters with real Men in Black. Dr. Herbert Hopkins was working as a consultant on a UFO case in the state of Maine. To what capacity he was involved is unclear, but here's his story. One night, while sitting home alone in his house and going over his UFO research, Herbert received a phone call. It was a man, and the man said that he was extremely interested in Hopkins' work, that he was a UFO activist, and he was really wanted to interview Herbert Hopkins about his research. So the mysterious voice on the phone asked Herbert if he can come to his home and interview him. Herbert was like, yeah, I guess. But the minute he hung up the phone, there was a knock at the door. There were no cell phones at this time, guys. I don't know exactly what the year was, but I know Hopkins died in 72. So this had to have happened way before cell phones. So anyways, Herbert hangs up and then immediately there's a knock at the door. Where was this person calling from that he was able to arrive so quickly? Anyways, when he opens the door, Hopkins described seeing a man standing there that was wearing a black suit and a black hat and had, quote, a very unusual facial appearance, end quote. The man had no hair on his head or face, including eyebrows. He was also extremely and unnaturally pale. Hopkins' usually gentle and quiet dog was savagely barking at this stranger and could not be silenced or calmed down the entire time this man was in the house interviewing Hopkins. After this man was finished questioning Hopkins about his UFO research, he told Hopkins that he knew he had 2 coins in his pocket and for him to take one out. Hopkins did in fact have 2 pennies in his pocket, and even though he was shocked, he was very intrigued, so he took one of the pennies out and held it out as the man had told him to do. Within seconds, the penny in Hopkins' hand started to shimmer and became very blurry. Then it started to go in and out of focus until suddenly it just wasn't there anymore. The MIB told Hopkins that the penny, quote, would never be seen on this plane again, end quote. What a creepy and weird encounter. Like, first of all, I wouldn't have let this guy in. And second of all, I've been kicked him out by now. The MIB then asked a seemingly random question when he asked Herbert Hopkins if he had heard about the alleged UFO abductee Barney Hill and his wife Betty. Herbert admitted that he had heard about Barney Hill and the abduction, but didn't know much about it, only that he knew Barney Hill had died recently, but he didn't know how. He wasn't following the case. The MIB responded, quote, that is correct. Barney no longer had a heart, just like you no longer have a coin, end quote. The weird thing about that is Barney Hill didn't die from a heart attack or anything having to do with his heart. He died of a cerebral hemorrhage in his brain. I don't know what the guy meant. Hopkins didn't know what the guy meant. Hopkins said the MIB gently and somewhat sympathetically suggested that Hopkins destroy all of his research and stop working on whatever projects he was working on and never speak of it again. He then turned and left. Hopkins was so scared, so frightened, he immediately complied. He got rid of everything that he had. He quit the research job. He was terrified. He never even spoke about it ever again. It only came out later in his life before he died. I believe he published a book about it because everyone was wondering why he went silent. He went off the grid. He never researched UFOs. He never spoke about it. And he never told anyone why until he was close to death. And then he wrote a book explaining. Hopkins never saw the strange black-clad man again, but he did start experiencing almost immediately some problems with his phone lines. Remember, there were only landlines, and they were done by that operator thing back in this time. When he called the phone company to find out what was going on with his phone, why did he keep experiencing interruptions and static and clicking noises, the phone company basically told him that his phone line or his phone had been tampered with. Many people still to this day believe that his phone had been tapped, and it was tapped by the MIB to make sure he kept his promise and remained silent forever about whatever he was working on. I wish I knew what he was working on. Do you think you could be threatened into silence about something like that? I mean, it's kind of a different age. You could kind of just put your phone in your pocket and record a conversation, or, I tend to not believe the newer videos on it. But I don't know. I would be terrified. I'd be afraid they would hurt my family. So I think I would have done the same thing Harold would have done, only I'd probably have a hard time not talking about it. I mean, this stuff intrigues me so much, and I hope I never run into an MIB, almost as much as I hope I never run into a BEK. Let's move on to another doctor who was allegedly visited and threatened by an MIB to stop his research immediately. Dr. Albert K. Bender was an extremely intelligent and well-respected researcher who founded the International Flying Saucer Bureau. So this guy was deep into UFO research, and he was super duper smart. So in 1955, Dr. Bender was about to publish his findings that concluded and proved without a doubt that to one degree or another, the United States government had covered up proof of alien activity and life forms here on Earth and just the actual existence of them. The government in the United States was aware of them, and he was about to go public with his proof. Dr. Bender claims that 3 men, all dressed in black suits, showed up at his house one night. They threatened him to never pursue any more research about aliens or UFOs, and he was told to get rid of the findings that he was about to go public with too. So they threatened him. Unfortunately, most people that were close to Bender at the time said after this encounter, he was never the same. He lived the rest of his life in seemingly a constant state of anxiety and fear, always looking over his shoulder. He's another one that was apparently so terrified and frightened of these 3 men who visited and threatened him, and I don't know what they said to him, that he immediately burned and got rid of every speck, ounce, paper, thing of research that he had and never talked about UFOs again. He actually immediately shut down the Flying Saucer Bureau as well, and he was another one who never told anyone why until the end of his life. He was terrified by whatever the MIB had said to him that night, and that's going to be a secret forever because Bender died and he never told anyone exactly what was said except that he was threatened. Even his research after that into other things tended to be rambly and to the point where they were almost incomprehensible. Bender died in 2002, still claiming that he was receiving strange phone calls at all hours of the day and night, only with no one on the other end. There they go, allegedly tampering with phones again. Probably they wanted to make sure that he wasn't talking about his research, what he had found. Ah, I wish we could have known how different the world might be if he was able to publish his findings. I've got one more story for you today, but as I said, do not fret because I'm coming out with a part 2 real soon, and part 3 of BEK is going to be out soon too. So this one's about a radio personality named Danny Gordon, and Danny Gordon was receiving all of these calls about these alleged UFO sightings in White, Virginia. A ton of people had called his radio station telling him that they were seeing these strange and unidentifiable objects flying through the sky, floating around through the sky. And he had so many calls, like I said, that he became so interested, he just had to know what was going on. And of course, being a radio personality, he was going to report it to his listeners. Like, I don't know about my YouTube personality, but I report everything to you guys that I think you'll find interesting, right? So I totally understand where he was coming from. He wanted to get evidence, he wanted to get facts, and he wanted to do a great show and find out what the heck was going on for his fans. I mean, that's why they were calling him, right? So Danny decided to investigate the matter on his own, and pretty soon after, he became absolutely obsessed with getting photographic evidence of what these people were seeing in the sky. So one day, while a group of school children were riding on a school bus, they reported that they saw these objects in the sky. And at the same time, Gordon was at the local mall looking in the sky, waiting with his camera, and he was actually able to snap a few pictures that corresponded to the exact same time and the exact same thing the children on the bus were seeing. So it was kind of like a backup or a proof that he was in fact taking pictures of what was in the sky. Again, this was a long time ago, no digital cameras, no cell phones. This was just those, it wasn't even, the disposable phones weren't even out yet. I mean, disposable cameras weren't even out yet. This was old school, you know, got to buy film for it and wait a week to get it developed type cameras. So Gordon that day finally managed to snap a few photos at, quote, extremely close range, end quote. And he thought he had his undeniable proof that these were UFOs in the sky. And he was ready to report it on his radio station and give the pictures to the newspaper and just go balls out with it. And that's what he did. He went public with the photos. However, once he did this, very strange things started happening to Danny Gordon. It began with him receiving a phone call from a strange and unfamiliar man telling Danny that he was, quote, ex-military, end quote. And this guy warned him that if he continued his research, it would, quote, cost him everything, end quote. The man also said that Gordon should, quote, definitely stop for your family's sake, end quote. So now the guy's making, again, veiled threats, not so veiled, like this guy's making actual threats, like something's going to happen to your effing family if you don't stop this crap. That's not okay, and that's terrifying. Like I said in the beginning, that would be the one thing that would get me to stop and to be quiet. But that's not the weirdest part. Two men claiming to work for a magazine publication called and asked if they can interview Danny and look at the photos and make copies or whatever for their magazine. When he went to meet these men, Gordon said they were wearing all black suits. There were two men, and they were dressed in black. So, not too long after the men concluded their interview, which Gordon later said was more like an interrogation, right? It wasn't like an interview. Like, these guys seemed pissed and they seemed like they were some kind of police or government agency that was actually interrogating him about what he had seen. When he finally went back home, he realized every single one of his photos and all of his research was missing from his home. There wasn't a scrap of his evidence left. So, they essentially got him out to this interview to get him out of the house so that they can break in. However, there were no signs of a break-in at all. Nothing else was touched. The police came, fingerprinted. There was no forced entry. How'd they get in? So anyway, Danny put two and two together and realized that he needed to contact the magazine because he really thought this had to do with these two men in black, these two interviewers from the magazine. When he contacted the magazine, they said they had never even heard of him. They had never heard of his photos, his research, and they certainly did not have anyone like the men were described working for them. So who were these men? So Daniel Gordon finally stopped because his doctors had long since been warning him that the stress from the MIB, from all the publicity and getting the photos stolen and everything he was going through to try to figure out what happened. Like, he didn't just let this go. Like, he went to the police, he went to the news, he made a big stink about this. Eventually, he ended up having a major heart attack. This heart attack seemed to open his eyes, and he gave up UFO research for the rest of his life. He never again tried finding out what happened. This guy even went on Unsolved Mysteries. He never spoke about UFOs or the Men in Black encounter again for the rest of his life. He didn't do any interviews. Wow. So let's talk about theories, and theories abound about who these men could be. Here are just a few that I've come across, and I really want to hear your opinions in the comments. So the theory number one is aliens. Some believe that the MIB are aliens in disguise who arrive in order to cover up the tracks of their own kind messing up and allowing themselves to be seen by the people here on this planet. Like when spaceships crash, that's not done on purpose. So someone has to go clean it up. So these people say it's their alien friends, like cleaning up their mess. I mean, after all, they seem to be able to vanish and appear at will right around wherever their target is. This could also be an explanation as to why they never show any kind of emotion, except sometimes anger. And as I said before, many have claimed to have seen the painted on lips with the lipstick and had seen them communicating telepathically. What happened with the coin, too? I tend to believe this theory. They remind me of the observers in the show Fringe, which, by the way, got a little crazy on the last season. I wasn't too happy about it, but the rest of that show, I wish they'd bring it back. So anyways, moving on to theory number two. Another theory that believers tend to believe is that the Men in Black are actually machines. Androids or robotic humanoids, which again point to the lack of any kind of emotion ever shown on the face of the MIB. Although, like I said, too, they are known to show rage, to react in a rageful way, I guess would be the best way to put it, because they don't show it on their face. It's just their body language that displays anger and rage, but no other emotions. There are claims that the MIB have no clue what to do with everyday things, such as being given a cup of Jell-O and putting it in his pocket after looking at it strangely, not knowing what to do with a fork, stuff like that. Skeptics, however, say that it's highly unlikely that this could be the case because the first sightings of them were reported way back in the 1940s and the 1950s, and our technology hadn't gotten so far. But what I say to you, skeptics who are making this claim, if they're alien, they could be making clones themselves. Who says we don't have this technology? That could be what Dr. Bender was about to come out with. So I call shenanigans on the skeptics in that one. They could very well be alien-made machines or made with tech that aliens had given us. Theory number three is that the MIB are just regular human beings but who are government officials. In the minds of many, the most believable theory is that the MIB are simply government agents, human ones, who work for a division of the United States government that's top secret, that they're there to cover up things having to do with aliens and to make sure that it doesn't go public. So by the very nature of their job, they're kind of bizarre. You know, maybe they don't interact a lot with human beings because they have to keep everything that they know so secret. And imagine knowing those kinds of crazy secrets and not being able to talk to anybody about it, even your loved ones. I could do a video on what the CIA used to do to people when they were done using them, or when the people would want to stop what they were doing, or when the people spoke out. In fact, I might. So anyway, many skeptics want to believe that they're real humans. An argument that the skeptics give to why they're simply human beings or government agents is because they hardly ever, I don't think ever, tend to actually kill someone. They just threaten them. But that's going on the theory that what, the United States government doesn't kill people? Moving on, Gemma. Moving on. These agents only seem to appear when someone's getting too close to the alien research and becomes a threat to the New World Order. This is what I read. It wasn't really explained, but I guess the NWO is allegedly working with aliens and they're about to, you know, die down the human population. I can get into a whole video just on that, guys. Let me know if you want to hear some conspiracy theories about the NWO, the Illuminati. I want to start doing little videos like this here and there. So that's all I have for today. But like I said, these are just 3 of many strange and bizarre encounters with MIB. I look forward to part 2. I really look forward to hearing your guys' opinions and your views in the comments. Are you a skeptic? Are you a believer? I'm definitely a believer. I believe that there are aliens who are here to cover up for their friends or alien brothers and to make sure nobody gets too close. I can go into all kinds of alleged alien encounters where the government had just told us that it was a weather balloon. Do you know what I mean? I can go on and on with these videos. My ankle just cracked again. If you heard that, it happens every video. So anyway, guys, if you like this little video, please be sure to give me a big thumbs up, like, subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure your notification bell is turned on. You can donate financially to the channel. It would really help me out so I can get a better background, so I can get some new equipment, guys. I've had one person donate through PayPal aside from my partner, Steve Stockton, and Steve's the only one on Patreon right now. I know it's the holidays. I know COVID-19, so if there is anything you can do, the link to my PayPal to go directly into my account is in the description box. The link to my Patreon is in the description box. And the link to my podcast, Strange Things with Steve Stockton and Gemma Jade, which airs every single Friday, I still don't know what time, is in the description box. Be kind to each other. It doesn't cost anything and can gain you so much. I tried really hard to make this video short and sweet and simple. It's just a break from the heavy, a break from the savage I covered last time, and just wanted to have a little fun with it. So I hope you guys don't mind. Have your best day. Have your best night. You can email me at gemmajadeyt@gmail.com. I encourage you to tell me any weird or bizarre paranormal, alien, UFO stories, reader stories, subscriber stories, actually. Please do that. Check me out on Instagram, but all I do on there is post selfies. I don't know why I do it, but I do. I like to post my selfies and see what people think of them. So if you want to be on there, here it is. And see you later, guys. Have a really great night. Yeah.